Cars that are sitting for months and months on dealer lots can come with large discounts that can save you a ton of money.
And who doesn't like to upgrade their ride without emptying their wallet, right?
Especially for high-value sports and supercars, the benefit can ramp up quickly, up to the point that it covers almost the first year of depreciation.
But how can you find these cars that come with enormous discounts? Let's dive a little bit deeper into it.
The time that a car is listed for sale tells something about the scarcity level of that car. If a seller has a lot of cars that aren't selling, the seller will, generally speaking, reduce prices, as the idea is that this helps to attract buyers. If the seller discounts the cars enough, the cars will start to sell. This of course also works the other way around. Remember when the C8 Corvette launched? It was one of the fastest selling cars in the US. Unsurprisingly, sellers added massive price premiums. The scarcity level was high, since demand was above supply.
We can identify the cars that aren't selling by looking at the carried over inventory.
That metric shows the percentage of cars that are for sale for 3 months or longer. If we look at the metric for the cars of which I'm tracking the prices, we can see that on average 30% of the cars during last year weren't sold within 3 months. There are however big differences. Some models are sold before you can blink, while others are close to impossible to sell. A handful of cars have a carried over inventory rate over 70%. This means that for these models, 70% of the market supply wasn't sold within 3 months. Now naturally, it's the area on the right hand side of the average where, in theory, you can get the best deals, right? After all, if 70% of the inventory isn't sold within 3 months, surely the seller is willing to give you a good deal.
Well, not always. It's a bit more nuanced than that.
It depends, for example, on the type of car you're looking at, the type of dealer, but also the time of the year. If we split the average carried over inventory during last year by brand, we can see that there are big differences between the brands. The sports cars of Mazda and Lexus sell relatively quickly at rates of 17 to 20%, while Ferraris and Maseratis sell relatively slowly at rates of 40 to 50%. Additionally, it's important to point out that the black lines show the confidence interval of the displayed rates. In other words, the uncertainty. The longer the black bar, the more variation over time between the various models.
So if Ferraris sell relatively slowly, it must mean that they offer the best discounts. Well, not quite.
The height of the carried over inventory percentage is driven by various factors. We can say, for example, with a high statistical confidence that more expensive cars have a higher carried over inventory percentage.
And this also follows from common sense, right?
A Ferrari 488, generally speaking, takes longer to sell than an MX-5. Moreover, high-end dealers might have different financing arrangements for their stock or work with consignments. Of course, there are always exceptions to the rules. GT3s, for example, tend to sell relatively quickly despite their high price tag.
Now all of this means that we need to add something to this graph to help us understand the relevance of the carried over inventory and to identify the best deals.
In orange, you can see now the discount rate for the carried over inventory. That is, the percentage by which car values are reduced if they didn't sell within 3 months. The values for this are displayed in percentages on the right hand axis. Looking at these values, we can see that they tend to be slightly higher for cars with a lower carried over inventory percentage.
This makes sense, right? But how do you use this information as a buyer to spot the best deals? Well, there are a few ways.
To start, you can look at cars that aren't selling quickly and get discounted a lot in case that they're not selling within 3 months, meaning that the orange and blue bars are close to each other in the right hand side of the graph. Unsurprisingly, we find Maserati and Aston Martin over here, meaning the MC20s and the V8 Vantages. But also the Nissan 400Z qualifies for this category. Now if you follow my channel, you know that prices have been plummeting in the MC20 market. The situation is improving slightly and the depreciation rate sits currently at 17%. Vantages are down by 10.8% compared to last year.
The Nissan Z400 is a bit of a special case. Discounts are the highest and they're selling relatively slowly.
Looking at the 400Z market for the base model, we can see that prices were above MSRP, but have been trending down rapidly. The premiums in this market weren't sustainable. Currently, the median price is $43.5 thousand versus $70.9 thousand in April of last year. A drop that can be primarily attributed to the deflation of the price premiums. Looking at the development of the discount rate over time, we can see that they decreased as the market slowly normalized. They decreased from -10 to -3%. Recently though, they increased again. This is a trend break and quite a surprising development. Perhaps it's just a winter dip, as a further drop would be highly unusual for this market segment. But let's get back to the issue at hand. If you're shopping in this segment, so cars that sell slowly and have a high discount rate, you should be able to get a hefty discount on the price. If the seller doesn't budge, just walk out. The cars are selling slowly, and as the data shows, the price will most likely be reduced in the upcoming period. When it comes to the advantages, it's important to mention that it applies especially to the 4.7 liter ones and less so to the 4 liter ones.
Now, using this strategy, so buying cars that sell relatively slowly and have a high discount, also means that you're setting yourself up for a monstrous depreciation curve. So let's have a look at some other strategies.
You can also find deals by looking at the cars that are selling quickly and have a high discount percentage, meaning that the gap between the blue and the orange bar is large and that they fall on the left hand side of the graph. Over here we find Mazda, Toyota, BMW, Alfa Romeo and Jaguar. The results for the Mazda market are fully driven by the Miatas. In the BMW market, we can see that it's mainly the M4s which are selling the quickest, while having almost the highest discounts. The result for the Alfa Romeos is mainly driven by the Giulia QVs, and the Jaguars of course reflect the F-Type market.
So how does all of this help you to get a good deal?
Well, for all of these markets with a low carried over inventory rate but a high discount percentage, it can pay off to pay close attention to the specific car you're interested in. If it has been sitting around for let's say 5 months, you know that it is above the average and that there's a good chance that there's some wiggle room in the price. So instead of waiting for the price to drop, it could pay off to simply talk to the seller.
Now, if you might have noticed by now, there are 4 different combinations available that each require a different strategy to get the best deal.
So far we looked at cars with a high discount rate and considered the situations in which cars are either selling quickly or slowly. But what should you do if you're shopping in a market with low discount rates?
If we have a look at the chart, we can see that the Acuras, or to be more precise the NSXs, have the lowest discount rates, yet are also selling relatively slowly. What's going on here?
It could mean 2 things. First, it could mean that sellers are simply stubborn. They rather sell for top dollar than shift inventory. This would mean that they need to be confident that they can actually sell it for a high price. Second, it could mean that transaction prices are far below listing prices. Now, looking at the development over time of the 2 metrics, we can see that sellers might have a reason to be confident. Carried over inventory rates decreased during last year, meaning that cars sold quicker and quicker, while the discount rates recently decreased to 0%. Overall, the Acura NSX base market is then also holding up quite well, but it needs to be said that this flat development is driven by the high mileage cars. Cars with less than 20,000 miles depreciated a lot. Going back to the graph, we can see that the Lamborghini, McLaren and Ferrari market might belong to this group as well, but the discount rates are slightly higher.
Now, as a buyer, shopping in this market segment is difficult. It could mean that prices are bottoming and that you can exploit it. This could explain the low discount rate, but it could also mean that you're about to overpay.
Now, all the cases that we discussed so far refer to markets in which prices are falling, or in the case of the Acura, potentially move towards stability. The aim in these kind of situations is then also to get a price discount that compensates you for the first year of depreciation.
Now, the holy grail is of course to get a good deal in a strong market, but alas, this is also very difficult. In these markets, inventory moves relatively quickly and unsold inventory gets hardly discounted.
This is the last quadrant in our overview, the one with the low discounts and a low carried over inventory rate. Looking at our chart, we can see that Lexus made it to this group, to be more precise, the LC500. Looking at the development of the carried over inventory and discount rates over time, we can see that LC500s have been always selling relatively quickly. Discount rates, though, decreased significantly during 2024, signaling an increase in market strength. This is confirmed by the price trend, in which we can see a clear flattening in the trend. Going back to the chart, we can see that nothing comes close to the LC500. That's because these are aggregate numbers. If we zoom into the Porsche market, we can see that Caymans, for example, also have a carried over inventory rate of 20% and an average discount rate of 3%. This in turn applies to most model variants, but not the GT4 RS.
So how should you get the best deals in these kind of markets? Well, you can try to time the market.
Even strong markets can contain seasonality effects, and you can exploit this. If we look, for example, at the discount rates in the Boxster market, we can see that they are discounted by 2% in May. During the winter though, discount rates increase. In 2022 and 2023, they even went up to 6%. This amounts to a significant portion, if not all, of the yearly depreciation rate.
Let's summarize what we saw.
If a car is for sale for a long time, it doesn't always mean that there's a good deal to be had. It depends among other things on the specific model, the price point, the price strength, the dealer, and the time of the year.
In a normal situation in which car prices are decreasing, there are few strategies you can use to get a stellar deal and compensate some of that depreciation.
In the upper right segment, we saw that deals can be found in markets with a high carried over inventory rate combined with high price reductions on unsold inventory. We saw that the MC20, 400Z and V Advantages are examples of this, especially the 4.7 liter ones. Now I think it's fair to say that the 400Z resides temporarily in this quadrant, while the others have a more permanent position.
Of course, it's unlikely that you will get a discount that no other customer would get, and future depreciation is likely to be high.
You should be aware that paying the full price in these type of markets is costly. If the seller won't budge, walking away could be a profitable strategy in this segment.
After that, we had a look at the cars with a low carried over inventory percentage but a high discount rate.
In this segment, it can pay off to pay close attention to the specific car you're interested in. If it has been sitting around for a while, you know that there's a good chance that there's some wiggle room in the price. Instead of waiting for the price to drop, it could pay off to simply talk to the seller.
Finally, we had a look at the situation in which cars aren't selling and also not being reduced in price.
You could get a good deal as the market is gaining strength, but also end up overpaying. Doing market research to understand the price trend and drivers is key.
Now when it comes to the strong markets, it's of course very difficult to find a good deal.
Cars sell quickly and the sellers discount the cars only by a few percentages in case that they don't sell. Yet, you can still save a bit on depreciation here if you buy in the winter. The strength of the seasonality effect though is highly model dependent.
Now long-term subscribers might recognize that I made a similar video last year, and I'm quite surprised to find out that many of the cars remained in the same quadrant. This of course helps to increase the confidence in the numbers, but it also raises the question, what pushes the car from one quadrant to another? And with that question we're going to end this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car prices but would like to see a video for a specific car, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find data-driven market updates for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of that car down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.